Hey everyone, this is Mace1370. Have some really good RTA matches to go over today. Before we get into those though, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also, please check the video description below for a link to my Discord. And lastly, the RTA tournament is tomorrow, so come check me out on Twitch at 12 p.m. Central if you want to check out those matches. It's twitch.tv/Mace1370, or at least Mace1370 is my Twitch ID. You can find more about that on the Discord. Okay, so for this first match, I pre-ban F10E. Pretty common pre-ban, and FCC is pre-banned by the opponent with the first pick of Cerise. I've noticed that a lot of high-up Legend players are pre-banning FCC right now. I think that it's kind of the go-to ban if you want to be able to cleave, and even if you're flexing into a control-ish, cleave hybrid team, then it's still a good pre-ban. And it is very hard to completely tank out a cleave team without FCC. So it's kind of a scary pre-ban. Makes RB a lot more viable early pick because he doesn't have to get through the FCC shields, etc. So they take Cerise. I counterpick the Golden Boys, Crow and Tywin. Tywin cleanses off Cerise's slow, which can be very helpful to be able to stabilize in the beginning of the game. And Crow offers mitigation, the shields, etc. They're both tanky units. So I think that's a reasonable, pick into a first pick of Cerise. The opponent then takes S10E and Faithless Lidica, so they've pretty much fully committed to cleave at this point. Or at least a very aggressive draft. I take Seaside Bellona because both Cerise and Faithless Lidica have a lot of AoE skills, so they're going to be giving her a lot of stacks, and it also gives me reach to get to the S10E. And then I take an Aureus Holder with Blue Crow. I would take FCC, but she's banned. And then a couple interesting picks from my opponent. They take ML Lulu and Green Iceria, which are kind of scary picks. You could reasonably assume in this scenario that the Green Iceria is speed tuned fairly quickly to go before ML Lulu.
Are you doubting me?
So that the opponent can set up a one-shot with the Death Break from Iceria. Also, Iceria can reset, either Lulu's S2 or, any of the big powerful skills from Faithless Lidica or Cerise. So Iceria is actually kind of a scary pick here. I last pick Elena, assuming it would have to be kind of force banned, given that they have so many AoEs that could push her up and they don't have CDOM to contest her. And then I banned out the Iceria because I was scared of the Strip and Death Break. I figured if I didn't have a Death Break, then I would be able to tank out the opponent. I did make a mistake. I should have put Crow, Blue Crow in the front rather than ML Crow. So that was definitely a mistake because I want him to take the damage from Seaside Bellona from her passive so that he can use his horse when he finally cycles up. So you can see the opponent's team is very squishy. My SSB is not super high damage, and she already took down Lulu to half health.
This is just perfect.
So the opponent just goes all in on SSB here. I have Adamant and Aureus Shield, and then also the shield from ML Crow, so I'm hoping that she's able to stay alive. Luckily, this S10E doesn't seem to be insanely high damage. I have drafted this type of team composition into some players, and SSB does die. So I think that the opponent's damage gear might have just been a little bit on the weaker side. SSB is stunned, which is unfortunate because now she won't be able to use her passive skills. I attack Faithless Lidica here because she's the only target I can viably hit. Cerise has Invincible, so I can't even strip the skill null off her. Lulu's in stealth, and of course you can't hit S10E. I debate about horsing here, but I think there's no point since I want to get def buff up on everyone. My team is still relatively healthy, and SSB is pretty much a lost cause anyways. And I'm able to kill with the S2, so horsing would have definitely been the wrong decision there. SSB manages to hold on still, but now I think she goes down.
Retribution.
And so now without SSB, I can no longer hit the S10E, so I have to get through both Cerise and Lulu before I can hit S10E. And Cerise does have skill null. Luckily, my speed tuning is such that my Tywin is able to go before my Crow, who has horse. And you can see my misplay here by not putting Blue Crow in the front, which I should have done. Blue Crow should have, you know, a few thousand less health, and the horse would definitely be lethal here. But because I misplayed and put, you know, him in the wrong position, he doesn't have as much damage here on his horse. And that could have cost me the game because Cerise lives here. She is Provoke though, so that's good at least. I don't know if she was on her skill 3 again. I guess not, because she pulled in the dual attack. So the opponent is going hard on Tywin here, but thankfully the defense buff plus Adamant and Aureus mean that he is going to be Omega thick and hard to kill. And we've already seen that Lulu's paper, so not at all hard to get through her. And that's going to be pretty much game now that Lulu is down. There's no way that Spectre Tenebria can solo this. I think my opponent was probably just sticking it out to see if my ML Tywin was on Holy Sack, maybe to make a note of that for next time. He is in this case. So yeah, the opponent just had no chance there because of Holy Sack.
Victory and honor are always mine.
Alright, for this next match, both of us pre-ban F10E. This time I get first pick, so I go with Falcon or Fluri. I think she's a very strong first pick. She's arguably one of the strongest units in the game right now, and she can also fit in a variety of playstyles. You know, you can fit her into a very offensive team, or you can fit her into a defensive team, and she fits really well in both of those. She provides a tremendous amount of support for your team. And so the fact that she can kind of flex into different strategies makes her a strong first pick. The opponent takes ML Ball and Aras. And admittedly, I have not run into too many ML Balls in the past couple weeks. He's incredibly strong right now. I think the only saving grace is that because people got selectors way back when, everyone traded in their balls for Arby's, since Ball was nerfed at that point. But he can be incredibly frustrating to play against because he has like solo potential where, you know, you get him down to like half health and then he uses his S3 and one-shots one of your team and then it heals him back to full and the cycle just repeats itself. So one of the things I pick here is Fallen Cecilia for a couple reasons. She complements Falcon or Fluri really well. The fact that Fluri is giving your team passive healing and then FCC is giving them the passive shields mean that a lot of chip damage is just totally ignored by your team. And the other reason is that ML Ball only strips one buff, so if you have FCC shields and immunity on people, you have like a 50-50 chance if he even strips away the immunity, which means that when he uses his skill 2 and you have FCC at the beginning of a match, there's a good chance that a lot of your team will not be slept because he'll strip off the shield and then he'll try to put sleep on them, but they'll have immunity. Then I take Spectre Tenebria because she can hide well behind FCC and Falcon or Fluri. ML Ball's, for the most part, single target. He can AoE sleep on his S2, but he'd have a difficult time actually killing Spectenny. So the opponent takes Landy and Little Queen Charlotte. The Little Queen Charlotte, I assume, is to attempt to one-shot my Fallen Cecilia and break through. Also, she gives Adamant Shield, so if Ras is on Aureus, then that's kind of the Adamant Aureus combo for my opponent for mitigation. I take Basar here for a couple reasons. One, LQC annoyingly puts up immunity on herself, so if you can give her buff block, it makes her a lot easier to control because she's typically built fairly slowly. So if you put buff block on her, you can just chain provoke her with Fallen Cecilia and then she'll just do nothing the whole match. The other reason is, you know, Ras gives a lot of buffs and Landy also gives buffs, you know, with speed buff. and is almost certainly going to be hiding behind Guiding Light, which is the most obnoxious artifact and something that is very difficult to play against. Then I take RB here because, it does seem like the opponent, I guess, has mitigation with Aras and Little Queen Charlotte, but they don't have shields, from something like FCC. So RB, I think, is going to be a reasonable thing. If he is able to blind Landy after Basar strips, that'll be great, or if Fluri, etc. His AoE will be able to pull Landy out of stealth because of the lack of shields, so that's why I picked RB. And then, of course, I banned ML Haste because I just don't have the damage to break through him in time for it to matter. So I get the first turn here. I debate about Soul Burning, but my Basar has pretty high effectiveness, so I just go for it. I suppose if I got 15%ed on Landy here, that might cost me the match, because then I wouldn't be able to get to her. So maybe Soul Burning was the right choice, just to make sure that didn't happen. But I was able to land buff block on the 3 that mattered, Ball, Landy, and LQC. I also got a lucky Abyssal Crown on LQC, who's on Hellcutter, which usually means she's on a higher damage build. Go ahead and rip with the RB, didn't get Gab, and I'm immediately impressed by how tanky my opponent's team is. I was expecting that to do a little bit more damage, but it did look like Ras was on Aureus, so the opponent does have Adamant and Aureus Shield. So here you can see the benefits of Fallen Cecilia. Ball uses his skill 2, but he is not able to sleep my Spectre Tenebria because he strips away the shield. So now I'm able to throw Spectre Tenebria's S3 stun into Landy here, now that she's been stripped by Basar. And this will prevent Landy from, skill 3ing and CR pushing herself, or I guess the team, up. And, I think this kind of the idea of basically taking away her buffs and putting buff block on Landy really shuts her down. Landy is very hard to deal with, and Basar is one of the best answers to her. So I'm kind of surprised my opponent let Basar through. I think maybe Basar was probably the ban for my opponent, and he should just let me have Falcon or Fluri. Falcon or Fluri is also very scary, though. I suppose I would be able to Death Break, Ball or somebody else, so perhaps they were in a pickle, but I think Basar here just gave me way too much of an advantage off the bat, because you can see Landy never gets to take a turn here, and she just dies. His ML Ball is super tanky, though.
Brace yourself.
So now I skill 2 with Basar. So now Little Queen Charlotte has buff block, hit down, and attack down. So I'm just not at all worried about, her going into Fallen Cecilia at this point. Even if she skill 3s, there's just no way she kills with attack down. And that's assuming she crits.
Excuse me.
The opponent goes for it anyways, and I get the lucky miss. I think the opponent had to go for it there because my FCC was coming up on her skill and could probably just provoke the Charlotte to prevent it from happening. He uses his S3 to kill RB, and I guess that was a fine time to do it. I'm not sure. I think he's pretty much already lost the game, so it probably doesn't matter. I gabbed to add insult to injury. I don't have ML Ball, so I'm not as, I don't have that intuitive sense on when you should and shouldn't use those skills. I guess he had to kill RB at some point, but it felt a bit of a waste since he didn't have that much HP loss. Maybe he could have held it for something else and just slept the RB, I'm not sure.
Whose turn is it today?
I get another lucky stun on the Little Queen Charlotte, and this match is over.
Don't put all your faith in me. My past, regrets, and hesitation. I'll sever everything with this. Did you see
And the opponent concedes.
everyone kneel before me? Shall we go to the land steeped in...
Okay, this time the opponent pre-bans Rylet, which is an interesting pre-ban.
Shall we go to the land
Seems more like a
of
Season 2
death?
pre-ban. Everybody knows now that Ryla doesn't dodge. He's retired. They first pick Fallen Cecilia, which is a very reasonable first pick. She's very strong in this meta. I take Last Rider Crow and then Spectre Tenebria.
You aren't even
I've been putting a
fit to
higher,
kiss my feet.
I guess, premium on Spec Tenny. She seems maybe easier to protect now. That people are doing more like debuffy stuff. I'm not sure. It felt like when I did this last season, she just died. But I mean, people were doing it last season too, to be fair. Maybe I was just doing it wrong. At any rate, I picked her with Last Rider Crow because he provides immunity to prevent her from getting debuffed, and then he also has mitigation to help her survive. The opponent takes Landy, and I think that's a good pick into LR Crow and Spec Tenny because LR Crow gives buffs, so that'll increase Landy's stacks. Landy also has strong AoE damage, so that can help her kill Spec Tenny, or the opponent to kill Spec Tenny. And then they take Blue Crow. Also, I think a good pick because Blue Crow is going to take a bunch of damage from LR Crow, and then he'll be able to horse early. He can give Landy defense buff. So overall, I think good picks from the opponent. I take Tywin and Basar. A couple reasons why. Basar, I think, is really strong into Landy and also Fallen Cecilia, and honestly into Crow. The buff block is just going to deny all of that stuff. And then on top of that, he can, debuff Landy and make, her ability to do damage a lot weaker. And then Tywin here I think is good because the opponent has no source of immunity really. So even if he bans Basar, my Tywin is still going to be able to soul burn and do his, cycling thing and slow and stun, etc.
I'll send you all away.
So then they take F Maya and Ravi. So the Maya is an interesting pick. I mean, I guess they took it because they want to be able to combat the debuffs from Tywin and Basar. Every time Maya gets hit, she cleanses off a debuff. I don't think it's a strong choice here for a couple reasons. And the first is Spec Tenny. Maya is really weak into Spec Tenny. Tenny can just hide behind tanks and just destroy your team, and Maya is super slow, is usually on Elbrus, but Spec Tenny gets around Elbrus, so not the best choice there. So here I take Seaside Bologna and then I ban the Landy. I ban Landy because I'm kind of assuming my opponent's banning Basar, and I don't want Landy to be able to hide behind, Guiding Light and just solo my team. But he doesn't. He actually banned Spec Tenny. I suppose because he took Maya, he was afraid of that, so that's fair. He probably took Maya assuming that he would ban Spec Tenny, but then I think he put himself in the position that now I have Basar against his team, who's still really strong, and then I also have Seaside Bologna into Red Ravi. Seaside Bologna is another source of unbuffable, so I think that really is going to mitigate like FCC and Crow in this fight. I then get a triple stun with Basar, and I also land unbuffable on Ravi, so I'm pretty good at this game.
Shall we bring this to a close?
I'm able to Crow Horse here with no worries whatsoever because Blue Crow is stunned. I've been experimenting between putting Portrait versus Adamant Shield on Crow. It is a noticeable damage difference. He's on Adamant Shield right now.
Brace yourself.
I keep going back and forth on which one I like. So then I get, I guess, a couple more stuns, which is kind of a rip for my opponent.
I'm getting tired of you. Bye-bye now.
And now we're able to dunk with SSB. So now Ravi has Unhealable. Unlucky that I didn't get the buff block on her, though. I have my soul, so I'm able to soul burn Tywin.
Mercy is too good.
And it's basically like I'm playing a crowd control team. Even more stuns. Maya gets off a lucky Elbrus there.
Why don't you just surrender?
So now my mission is I want to kill Crow before he can horse. He's pretty much locked down, so I think I should be able to just kind of poke him to death before he's able to, cycle into a turn.
Whose turn is it today?
That Maya actually hits pretty hard.
Let's end this.
I get a lucky dual attack, and then he gets a lucky Elbrus, almost killing my Basar.
I'll show you how I do things.
So there's just no way I don't kill the Crow here before he takes a turn since he's slowed. Crow goes poof. Another Maya Elvish proc. I don't want to hit her because I don't want to cleanse the slow off, but I mean I guess she is getting a lot of turns. And this is a counter Ravi, so I am a little concerned about the solo potential, but I do have SSB, so I think that potential is going to be pretty low.
I won't go easy on you.
Let's defy the odds.
It's amazing how, with counter Ravi, sometimes debuffs will just like melt off of her, you know, with her exclusive equipment, and if she's on like something like Crimson Seed. I'm debating about switching, you know, mine to counter, but I like the speed build quite a bit. I think they're both really good. You know, it's basically just if you draft Ravi in the right situation, she just takes the game away. And that situation is essentially when the opponent has grass units and doesn't have SSB.
Whose turn is it today?
Basar is able to hold on here and he gets back to his S3. Even the Elbrus is not able to finish him off. I debate about killing off the Fallen Cecilia here, but she'll die to adamant shield damage and she has buff block, so she's not going to put a shield on herself. And it looks like this Maya's on counter set actually, so it didn't matter if I hit her or not. There was still a chance she could attack back. I think Maya is really good in this meta. She did get overwhelmed here by debuffs, so it is possible to control her. You just have to have a lot of debuffers.
Alright, let's have some fun. Follow me!
So Ravi, I guess, does have her skill 3 here.
Slash the dream.
Unlucky miss onto SSB. She does get the stun on Tywin though, which is significant. But she still dies. So that's all for now. Thanks for watching.
I live another day.